And we're back. Hopefully, will sum up these 2 episodes, and then we can push forward. Because there's a lot to review. Note to self: I gotta scrunch it up in quicker episodes because doing this it's a lot to retain and try to again relate to y'all who are my faithful viewers, and thank you for watching. So yeah, you can see that there's a relationship, maybe rivalry happening between Whisper and Roulette. I was under the impression, though, when I first saw Whisper's character, that she could have been white because she really could pass, but plus those like odd looking contact lenses that they always put, those aren't natural eye colors. Those are because they're very like circular, and also they're kind of like a neon blue, so but really makes her stand out, especially when she has particular wigs. I haven't seen her out of her wigs and whatnot. I've only seen her, beautifully dressed and whatever sexy ensemble I have, but we've seen more Roulette out of like, makeup and whatnot in the entertainment aspect of it. But and I wonder why that is. But from what I've heard online, she is a woman of color. She's mixed. Just again, we haven't necessarily seen her out of the whole getup, so I can't say I can clock it. But yeah, you can see. But also, you can see. You also we have a as a as spectators, we get to see firsthand what also happens. Like it's not just them pushing themselves out there and making that money, but also sometimes what it needs to take to get the courage to go out there on the stage. Now these two are veterans. Don't get it twisted. Roulette and Whisper have been kind of at this type of rodeo for a while, but again, I guess to pump up morale, you see sometimes behind the scenes how they need to work themselves up. Not in every case, but you see Whisper offer some coke to Roulette, who she can sense is going through something or mulling over something in her head. There's another purpose why she's necessarily there. Also, you see sometimes when you're an exotic dancer and being a woman, hey, guess what? Mother Nature happens, and there's the introduction of Mother Flow, which again, this is why I say this is like unheard of. We've never seen this aspect, not even in reality television. I think they still stray away from certain things like that, like not meant to be seen, and look, guess what? It happens. Yeah, we're human. These are human beings going up there. Yes, they could do incredible things with their bodies, but guess what? Sometimes Mother Nature doesn't care, and it's your flow, it's your time. So we see that Roulette is, got a visit from Aunt Flo, and and then we see Whisper help her bail her out and give her a tampon and whatnot, and they're semi getting along, but it's more on like Roulette's aspect of it. Also because I think again a lot of challenges that have been reoccurring throughout this season is how they're being very like not forceful, but definitely putting up a projection, a mirror to how sometimes, and not even sometimes, but in a lot of opportunities, how colorism plays into to society and how you are met with that, and how privilege can often also alter, even though we are, or at least in this group of characters, that there's a lot of people of color, how sometimes having that benefit of being light or close to being light, and how these people get advantages as opposed to a darker skin tone brother and sister, and that don't have the same advantages as people who are fair. And Katori Hall, who's creator of the show, does not shy away from that, and I love that. I love that. Like, put it out there, put it in people's faces, make people feel uncomfortable, because that needs to be talked about. So, as we finish Dirty Dozen, we can see that Andrew, are what what Uncle Clifford called fake Obama. Was very much, still very much tied to Miss Autumn Night, to Miss Haley, because he has a thing for her. He's still trying to figure out what's gonna happen, and also finds out. I think he finds out at the end of this episode or the following episode that he inherits the his goddaddy's home. That's how much. Even though there was a weird relationship in season one, but I think that has something to do with more of like the generation that his goddaddy was from. But he still has some kind of reverence for him that he, in his testament, leaves the house to Andrew. So more reason for him to stay. He has a job offer at home. I think he lives more in like in Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken, with his wife, but she's dealing with a lot. They're still very much in the height of COVID, because remember, even though this probably took place while they filmed in 2021, it's supposed to be 2020 when it's the height of the pandemic and there's still no vaccine. And so you see that his wife is struggling and having to deal with a lot. Plus, she feels like she's alone, because where's her husband? Her husband's now handling his goddaddy's I guess final procedures and will and testaments and whatnot, while still kind of reminiscing and staying put there. So she's kind of met, and yet her parents are offering him a job, which again comes back to the whole, like, she's from a well-to-do family. But again, maybe in his eyes, he's always felt like her family has put him down for that purpose, and he's not necessarily running back to that. But we'll get into that with further detail as we break down more of the episodes. So we can see that Shell and Mercedes, especially the child, has more of an understanding of where she came from, but she's still kind of resentful because she feels that Mercedes didn't make any really initial steps to keep her. And even though she's had supposedly the quote-unquote white picket fence ideal upbringing, she wasn't happy with Shell. Or Shell maybe perhaps wasn't necessarily overly motherly, because again, she was a child that was out of that union. It's a child that her husband fathered with another woman, and on top of that, it was a woman that wasn't necessarily a woman. And she was still a teenager that had lied about her age and whatnot. So that gets complicated and can really have a rift in a marriage. But I believe the husband died. But before he died, he made Shell promise to never let I was gonna say Katori, to never let Mercedes have custody of their child. He didn't have confidence that she could take care of the child. So we also see more of a dialogue between Teak, who's murder security, a friend of the whole grouping, but we also see that they have history with each other. And I think here we see in this episode, which is again episode 3 or 203, marked The Dirty Dozen, towards the end you can see that they had back history. I think Little Murder may have had a stint in jail. That's how they met, and they had some kind of feels for each other. It's not 100% disclosed here, I will say. It just seems like they had a really beautiful, genuine bond that perhaps could have been friendly. But he admits, he's like, those little raps that you wrote, while I was in the hole and I was really feeling depressed, they shed some light in my life. So you can see like the connection that they had together. Now, towards the end, we also find out that Roulette, again, being savvy, and perhaps she's probably done this a number of times, but she finds other sources of income, aka she prostitutes herself. again, these are things that we see in the line that, again, I'm not saying in every case. Some people genuinely go because they do this line of work because they are saving for other things or saving to go to school, but sometimes in other cases it's not the case. And these are her other avenues of income, of her prostituting herself. Now, she's already met Big L's other friend who was dating Gidget, which is Keyshawn's bottom bitch, like she calls her. I don't have his name right in front of me right now, but he's our other white character who was dating Keyshawn. He's also either current drug dealer or former drug dealer. He says he wants to leave it in the past because he wants to make amends with Gidget. He feels like that was the love of his life. But now, as he is introduced to Roulette, that turns blurry because it seems like they're kind of getting along. And as Roulette is coming back from one of her, rendezvous with her John, she notices that Big L and him are moving all of this like OxyContin illegal, and she kind of gives him a nod, like, well, I won't say nothing if you don't say nothing, and that's where we leave off there. Now, jumping into the following episode. Now we review episode 4, which is titled, well, it's actually 204, and it's titled Demetrius. Now we have a little bit of backstory with Roulette. But the way we start, again, like I've mentioned before, this show is a comedy. So even though it is so well written and really well immersed with taboo subjects and pain and things that aren't necessarily always talked about or isn't mainstream, it is essentially a comedy, and enveloped in a lot of truth. Like, so even the way this episode pops off, we have our famous, she was that messy queen from last season who was going through a divorce, spends all her money at the club on Keyshawn, and then she's back. She loves P Valley. Everybody loves P Valley. It is the go-to social place, social club, and she's again enamored, enthralled, even with Whisper. And again, the way that they shot how these women are dancing, and the way the lights, the neon pink lights hits on them, and even the way that they are able to catch their imagery on these masks, these bowl-like masks that were really popular. I'm really kicking myself that I never bought one, because I just thought it was a little too much. But I would be wearing it right now for the review. You could see her, and and we had an understanding that she is, I think, openly bi, so she's spending her money. Now she's spending not the divorce money, but she's spending her stimulus check. And then there's one particular scene, because they have, I forget what her stage name is, but she has allergies and she's constantly sneezing. So for some reason she feels so comfortable in the private room, in the champagne room, and she's taking all of her masks off, and she has a moment where she has an allergy attack, and oh my god, even the way they captured this, obviously this was not truthful. This was probably a water spritzer that was sprayed in this poor actress's face, but you are to assume that the dancer spat on her by accident, and all of the saliva goes running on her face as she gets. And tell me we all didn't have those like paranoia moments. So some of us still do, running for dear life when you see or hear anybody sneezing. And so she now to for it to come to light that this lady works for the city and health commission, I think. So she's director, and in fact she knows how to reinforce, or is to reinforce, how they are to separate. And this became such a problem for a lot of people. I can't tell you how many times on the news I kept hearing about how places needed sometimes were often closed because they weren't meeting protocol of 6 feet distance. Everybody needs to be masked, everybody needs PPE, and again, it was all to keep everybody safe, but it also came at a price where it was an inconvenience. It was really expensive, and then at the same time, it just didn't feel too socially engaging, so people kind of are turned off from that. That's why unfortunately, a lot of businesses failed, because how can you interact that way? So, she slammed them with like an 11,000 fine, and it almost was like $25,000. But when Uncle Clifford clocked her, and then his makeup girl who works in the back clocked her for being that drunk lady, and confessed in the jail cell that she had been sleeping with her mother-in-law, it was like, mother-in-law. She was like, okay, I'll leave it at $11,000. But it was the funniest thing. So again, people forget that this is actually supposed to be funny, a funny show, and it really is. Plays into it. We also find out that some people do know how Roulette is making her money. They kind of throw her under the water. And we also see that Roulette holds her own. She could be like, I don't know how she's not into wrestling or she's not into MMA, because she knows how to defend herself really well. We're back on the road with the kitties. We're back with Keyshawn. Now we see Gidget. So Gidget is not just meant to be on the phone. We see her, meeting up with her bottom bitch, Keyshawn. And they're, again, constantly promoting on the gram that they're going to be presenting at some other club.